S. Whitney is the author of a book entitled Spiritual Disciplines for the Christian Life. And on page 99, he writes this line: "Only the sheer rapture of being lost in the worship of God is as exhilarating and intoxicating as telling somebody about Jesus Christ." And I read that line and I think, wow, does that guy not know his audience, right? Because, wow, Jim Gaffigan, he says what we're thinking, right? Even us religious people find it awkward and weird sometimes to talk about Jesus. So we get this idea that telling people about Jesus is exhilarating. It's intoxicating, right? But the reality is, for most of us, most of the time, we don't like it. Let's admit it, right? We know we're supposed to do it. We know we're supposed to evangelize, tell people about Jesus, because well-meaning pastors preach sermons about it, right? We know we're supposed to be doing it, but it's awkward and it's uncomfortable, and they might reject me or make fun of me if I say something about Jesus. So we just don't do it. I mean, let's be honest, we don't do it. Those of us who do it, we aren't doing it as often as we know we should, right? And so we start thinking about that, and we get to feeling, we get feeling guilty, and then we're embarrassed, right? So we get around other people who follow Jesus, and the topic of evangelism, the topic of telling other people about Jesus, it comes up, and what do? We get all dodgy, right? We kind of pull away from that relationship a little bit because we don't want them to know we're not doing it. And then we get and think about it, it's like, God's probably upset with me because I'm not telling other people about Jesus, and we get guilty there. So we pull away from God, right? It's like, I just separate from God a little bit. And we have that loss of relationship. And I step back and I think, is that what the gospel's about? Is that what Jesus died for? So we could feel guilty about not telling other people more often that he died? Not really. I mean, and so there's a problem there. There's a problem with what we've allowed evangelism, this idea of telling other people about Jesus, what we've turned it into. So as we come in and we continue our series this week on spiritual practices, right? Things we do in our life to seek God and know God in a greater fashion in our life, we come to this idea of practicing evangelism. And so let's just step back, since we've made a wrong turn somewhere. And let's really take a look at it, what it's supposed to be, and how we can practice evangelism in such a way that we are meeting God. Because there's no doubt about it, yes, God in his scriptures, he tells us we are to be out there telling people about Jesus. We're to be out there spreading the gospel, right? We're to be out there telling people how Jesus came from heaven to earth as the Son of God to live a perfect life, how Jesus deliberately, intentionally went and died, suffered on a cross to pay the penalty for mankind's sin, that everyone who comes seeking him would have forgiveness of sins. And we're to be telling them how 3 days later, Jesus rose from the grave to prove to us, hey, yes, here is life. It is in me. You can have it. Come get it. That's there. And the scripture makes it clear we're supposed to be telling people that, right? It's scriptures in the Bible. A lot of them we are familiar with. So let's just take a look at a few real fast. Number one there from the book of Matthew is Matthew 28, 19 and 20. We know what it is, right? It's the Great Commission. Go and make disciples of all nations. Preach to them, teach them, baptize them, make disciples. Tell them about me. So Matthew, where do we go next? Sandy, we go Matthew to Mark, right? Mark chapter 16, verse 15. He said to them, go into all the world and preach. You tell them the gospel to all creation. So there we go. There we go. We're supposed to be telling. Matthew, Mark, where are we going next? Guess Luke, right? Repentance for the forgiveness of sins will be preached in his name to all nations. Again, tell everyone all over the world and all nations about me. Matthew, Mark, Luke, where are we going? John. Again, Jesus said, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. So go, do it, tell the world. Now where are we going? Yeah, we're going to go to Acts, the beginning of Acts. Jesus has a little bit of a cameo at the beginning of Acts. It's some of his last words, and he says, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. This idea, it's there, this expectation from the mouth of Jesus himself. You are going to tell people my story. Jesus expects we're going to do it. And Jesus not only expects that we're going to be telling the story, but he expects that when we do tell the story, it is going to be intoxicating. It is going to be exhilarating. And he kind of indicates this when he tells a story in Luke chapter 15. Sandy, if you want to bounce us ahead there, this is how he starts the story. Suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? Isn't that what we do? Say we got $1,000. We got $1,000? Wow, yeah, no, we got $1,000, right? We got 10 $100 bills, and we count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We lost one, right? We have $900, but we just kind of put that somewhere, and then what do? We tear the house apart, looking for that $100, right? This is what we do, and this is what Jesus says the woman does. And then this is how Jesus continues his story. When she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost coin," right? She finds something that's important to her, and she says, "Let's have a party. Let's celebrate that I have found this." Isn't this what we do? Do you ever lose something important? And then you find it? I'll tell you a story. One time we lost my nephew, Caleb. When he was about 6 years old, we were at the Ford City football field and the track and field there, and we were there for the American Cancer Society Relay for Life. And we take Jana every year to participate in the Survivor's Walk. And we were there, and as you're there, as they're getting ready for the Survivor Walk, cancer survivors from all across Armstrong County and beyond start coming to participate in this. And with them, they bring their families, they bring their support groups, they bring people who are donating to the cause, and then there are all these teams there who have raised money. Everyone's there, and so this big wide open area fills up real fast, and it gets really crowded. Well, we were there, and we meet up with some people from my brother-in-law Pete's church. And of course, this is where the trouble starts, with people from his church. It would never be people from my church, right? So we meet up with them, and then there are a couple teenagers with them that we know from his church, and they're going to walk around the track. And so they say, "Hey, let's take Caleb with us." And we're like, "Okay, sure," because they're old enough. And they go around the track, and they come back around, and they get back around, and Caleb's not with them. And we say, "Where is Caleb?" And they don't know. And this is the moment, right? My kid's gone. Like that moment of sheer terror, right? All these people around, that moment where all those stories you read in the news, all those things you've seen on TV, and you think that could never happen to me, I hope that never happens to me. Well, suddenly they become a reality, right? A possibility. And so there's just this panic as all of us adults just spread out all over the field, searching frantically for Caleb. Where is he? And I searched 5-10 minutes, and we didn't hear anything. And each passing moment, it becomes, you get more ideas about what's going on, where he is, who's taken him, and what's going to become of him. Finally, my cell phone rings. It's my sister. She's like, "We have him." And in that moment, it's just like, there's no one around who I know, but I just want to hug every stranger, right? Yeah, the kid's back. Come celebrate with me. He's all right. That's kind of what the woman in the story does. And Jesus says that's the same kind of celebration that happens in heaven. When someone puts their faith in Jesus, when someone comes to faith in Jesus Christ for eternal life, this is how Jesus finishes the story. He says, "In the same way I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents." Over one sinner who someone told them the gospel, and they come to faith in Jesus Christ. It's this celebration. And God says, you can be a part of that celebration. You get a role in that. You can come into that, this party, by being the one to tell the story of the gospel. You tell the story. Now listen, it's the Holy Spirit's job to convince the people we tell the gospel to of its truth. That's God's job. So don't put on yourself this idea that evangelism means God expects me to change people's hearts. No, we don't change people's hearts. God changes people's hearts. But we are God's instruments for telling the heart-changing story. Right here. So when we're obedient, we tell the story. We walk into a process that could very likely end in this great, wonderful celebration, this party. And God says, you can take part in it, all because of evangelism. Yay, evangelism! Go evangelism! Is that how we are with evangelism? No, we get this expectation from Jesus. And he paints a really great picture of what it's like when we do tell people about Jesus, but we're not doing it. And we're falling short. And we all have reasons for not doing it, don't we? We got reasons, or we might call them excuses, right? I don't know enough, right? I got to tell you, if you're saying that, if you know enough to know that you are saved by grace through faith in Jesus Christ, you know enough to tell somebody else how to be saved. Now, you might not know the answers to a bunch of questions they're going to ask in the meantime and a bunch of objections they come up with, but you know enough to point them in a direction of how to be right with God. You know it. Well, it's just not my gifting or some variation of this. Somebody else has that gift. It's somebody else's job. It's the pastor's job. And you know what? It's right that the Holy Spirit of God does gift certain people, individuals, with this ability to evangelize the world in a powerful way, in a way that drives them, and they do it well. But that doesn't take away this expectation that is on every child of God. He expects us to be telling the story of Jesus Christ. See, we learn this from the Apostle Peter. This is what Peter writes in his first letter to the churches. He says, "You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." He says, you are a chosen people. So who is he talking to here? He's talking to all the people, right? He's talking to all of the church, not individuals within the church. But he says, you, the church, people who have faith in Jesus Christ, you are a chosen people. And as that chosen people, you have been made into a royal priesthood. All who follow Jesus are priests. That means you, as a follower of Jesus Christ, are a royal priest. Not bad, right? You get royalty and you get priesthood all in one fell swoop, right? So you get this idea, I'm a royal priest, right? So what does a priest do? What do we do with this, right? Well, in the Old Testament, which is where Peter would have understood his idea of what priests do, that's where he would have gotten it from. In the Old Testament, the priest had two roles. And if you've been part of our multiply groups, we talked about this a few weeks ago. But a priest had two roles. One, to represent God to all the people. And the second role was to present the people to God. So as priests, you know what this is? This is our role. But it's also evangelism. That's what it is, ladies and gentlemen, because we get this idea. We represent God to the people. How do we do that? We declare the words of the gospel. We tell people about Jesus Christ. We explain how God should be praised and worshiped because he's brought us from the darkness into this light. We represent God to the people. And then we present the people to God. We bring people to God's doorstep, right? By telling them the gospel. We lead them to where God is. And whether they go through that door and receive God's grace, well, that's between them and God. But we've done our part. We've done our part as the priests, right? We're all priests. We're all priests. So our reasons, our excuses for not telling the story of Jesus Christ to other people, they don't hold up. We are all called to tell the story. But somewhere along the way, we've kind of taken a wrong turn, right? Because we're not telling the story. And the point of the sermon isn't to get us bogged down in guilt for not telling the story. I don't want to do that. I don't want you to feel forced into telling people about Jesus because you feel guilty. No, I want you to crave those opportunities to tell about Jesus in your life so that you can enter into that great celebration that Jesus kind of tells us about in Luke chapter 15. So instead of looking at all these excuses and saying, you're using this one and you're using this one and you shouldn't be, let's not do that. But let's look behind the excuses. What's really going on? Right? If evangelism is such a big entrance into celebration, right? We got this promise of celebration. Why aren't we laying hold of it? And the answer to that question, that's a huge question. Because the topic of evangelism is huge, right? Telling people about Jesus. As I remembered when I was putting this sermon together, I was like, well, we can put this in, we can get this, and we can get this, and we can get this. And they'll expect me to talk about this, and it's not all going to fit in here today, folks. But one thing I am going to point out is that I think a major contributor to our falling short here. What is it? We read about it again in 1 Peter. Where Peter's writing to the churches in chapter 3, and he says this: always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. He says, always be prepared to give a reason for the hope. You know, that hope is Jesus Christ and the promise we have of eternal life in him. That's the hope. He says, always be prepared. Again, another repetition reminding us we should be sharing the story of Jesus, right? We should be prepared to share it. But what I want to hone in on here is this word in white. Hope. That word hope. Because the assumption that Peter makes when he writes is that we're going to have that hope in our lives. We're going to have Jesus Christ in our lives, and it's going to be something we're going to want to be excited about telling other people about. So maybe the reason so often we fail to tell other people about Jesus Christ is because that hope, Jesus himself, is just not that prevalent. He's just not that exciting in our lives. And since he's not really that big a deal in our lives, well, we don't need other people to follow him because he just wouldn't be that big a deal in their lives either, right? I want you to think about this. Did you ever find the perfect gift for someone? Like you were just out shopping, you knew you needed a gift for someone, and you found like the perfect gift. It's like you bought it and you're like, I can't wait for the big day, whether it's a birthday or Christmas, I want to be there, and when the big day comes, you push everyone else aside and say, open mine first, right? Because you want to give them this gift. I was like this once, one Christmas. I thought I'd found for my family the perfect gift to give to my Aunt Dixie. There she is. And you want to know what it was? Hey, Vanna, you want to hit the and show us what it was? It was a Miss Piggy fashion doll. Because back in the day, when I was younger, my aunt was a huge Miss Piggy fan. And I was just wandering through the toy aisles, as kids do, of Hills. You remember Hills? And there it was. And I went and got my mom. I said, Mom, we got to buy it for her. It's perfect. And like we bought it, and I had to be the one to wrap it because it was just the greatest present ever. And then Christmas came, and I couldn't wait for her to open it. I was more excited about her opening this than she was to be getting a gift. Probably more exciting than opening anything I was getting, right? Because it was like the perfect gift. But how much greater is Jesus than a Miss Piggy fashion doll? You see, that excitement we get when we find a perfect gift, that's what we are to have about Jesus in our lives, that excitement to tell other people about Jesus. Jesus is so exciting that we can't wait to help, or we can't help but wait to tell people about him. And it exhilarates us and it intoxicates us to tell other people about Jesus. But if this hope, if it's not exhilarating, if it's not intoxicating, if Jesus isn't exciting in our lives, then sharing the gospel is not something we're going to be excited about doing, is it? If we don't recognize on a daily, ongoing basis that we have in Jesus Christ the greatest gift of all time in all the universe, then there is going to be no driving force pushing us to tell other people about Jesus. You know, we tell other people about Jesus, and we do it without feeling guilty for not doing it, but we just want to do it, right? Because he is so great in our lives. But let's face it, following Jesus becomes ordinary, right? Because we do it every day. And if we're not careful, that ordinariness can cause us to, take that light that Jesus shines in our lives, and it can cause us to just kind of back away from it. That light becomes dimmer because we start going after other things, right? Life becomes about stuff. Life becomes about ourselves and not about Jesus Christ. And so Jesus becomes, not very exciting. And we stop living for him. We stop changing for him. And people stop seeing anything great in our lives that they think they might want in their own life. See, we think about these things and we start to feel guilty, right? Instead of feeling guilty, instead of taking time making excuses, let's take that time, let's take that effort into earnestly seeking the greatness of Jesus Christ in our life every day. Let's stop and think, hey, just how horrible would my life be if I hadn't been saved by Jesus? Have you thought about that recently? Some of you, the answer to that is just completely horrible. Where would I be? Right? Or we get this idea, Jesus died for my sins are forgiven. But what specifically have you thought about lately? What specifically you've been forgiven for? What sin would you otherwise have tagging behind you, pulling you down, weighing you down in life if you didn't have Jesus? How is the Holy Spirit of Jesus Christ empowering you every day to persevere beyond what life throws at you? How is Jesus protecting you in ways every day that we're just not even taking time to notice? How are we comforted every day by the all-encompassing love and mercy and grace of Jesus Christ that comes into our life by his Spirit and by the people he gives to us? Do we stop and remember what makes us sing, knowing you, Jesus, there's no greater thing? See, when we seek to come into the light of Jesus Christ, and we're doing that every day, then that light, it's going to infuse us, it's going to overwhelm us, and it's just going to burst right out of us. Can't help it. And we'll be shining the light of Jesus Christ to every person we come and we see. Jesus will be so great in our lives that we will be absolutely exhilarated. We will be intoxicated by the idea of telling other people about Jesus. See, the reason we don't practice evangelism isn't because of those reasons or excuses we give. It's not because we don't know enough. It's not because we're not good at it. It's not because it's somebody else's job. It's not even because we're afraid of what people might think. All those things might be in our minds somewhere. But I think the reason we don't tell other people about Jesus is because we are not cherishing him in our lives ourselves. We are not clinging to that hope. We talk about spiritual practices. And the spiritual practice we talk about today is evangelism. And if we want to practice evangelism, that's the first step. Seeking God, seeking Jesus in our lives, appreciating him, desiring him. Because you can't give something else to somebody else that you don't have yourself, and you're not even going to want to. So that's the first step. We've got to know Jesus ourselves every day. Most important step. And then we come and we go further. We need to start spending time with people who don't know Jesus. Because, a funny thing happens as we are Christians and as we are in the church longer and longer, we get fewer and fewer people in our lives who know Jesus. So we got to work at this. Guess what? That's practice. You got to practice it. You got to go out and find people and deliberately spend time with them when they don't know Jesus. That's why we do outreach events. That's why we do Vacation Bible School. We got the trick or treat coming up. We do visitation at the high rise to give us an opportunity to get to know people who might not know Jesus. And I got a couple things to say about that if you're not participating in those things with us. Number one, we miss you. It's more fun when everyone is there. But second, you are missing out on opportunities to get to know people who don't know Jesus. You're missing out on opportunities to practice evangelism. So if not there, where? Where in your life are you spending time with lost people? It takes effort. It takes practice. And once you find them, once you're spending time with them, you've got to start praying for them. We have a whole sermon coming up on practicing prayer. So I'm not going to say too much here, but I will say prayer is so important when it comes to evangelism. You've got to be praying for people who don't know Jesus Christ. And finally, you've communed with Jesus in your own life. You've met people who don't know him. You're praying for them. Finally, you've got to tell them the story of Jesus. Or you've got to take them to someone or something that can tell them. And this is so important. You might do everything else right up to here, but if you don't get this done, it's kind of meaningless because they can't believe if they don't know the story. We've got to tell it. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, that sounds great, but I can't do this. I'm no good at it. And some of you right now, you're thinking, he's going to tell us we're just making excuses. And I'm not going to tell you that. Because that's not an excuse. It's probably true. You might be really bad at evangelism. That's why it's called practice. Spiritual practice. We get better at it as we practice. As we practice, we recognize the work of God in our lives and through our lives. As we practice, we get to take part in that heavenly celebration that Jesus says happens when someone gives their life to Jesus Christ. And we only get to come into that celebration if we're practicing. Won't you practice with me this art of telling people about Jesus Christ?